So for those of you that haven't heard, my name is Mike Smith. I'm founder of For College Golf. I started this business in 2014. I am based just south of Jacksonville, Florida, in a small town called Ponte Vedra Beach, widely known for TPC Sawgrass and the Players Championship. So I was very fortunate to grow up here. I played my college golf at James Madison. Absolutely had a fabulous time there. Would not trade it for the world. And I got very lucky to find I actually committed and signed in April of my senior year. And I think that's also one of the main reasons why I love what I do today. And I try to remove all of that luck that I was so lucky, I guess, for lack of better words, to have my senior year of high school. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in. Our topic tonight is the numbers you need to get a college golf scholarship. Okay. So my real understanding is it really depends on the player. And the way I've started For College Golf and the way I operate now is one-on-one with my players. I do not really do any group meetings. The only group settings that I really have are these webinars. So individual questions, for the Ivy Leagues or a player that's, in 8th or 9th grade, probably we can direct those tonight. We can talk about those tonight, but ideally I'd like to direct those to an individual conversation later on, if it really is something individualistic and specific to you. And many times it really just does depend on the player. But I'm going to give you guys some generalizations tonight based on the numbers that I have, that I've broken down, the experience, and the knowledge that I've gained and gathered over the years, and hopefully give you guys a better idea of where you might be fitting. So I think first and foremost, I'd like to say this. What I tend to see many times is players reaching out to a very small number of schools with too high of expectations, too late in the process. So that would look something like Johnny from Georgia is shooting 78, and he goes ahead and he emails Kennesaw State, Georgia, and Georgia Tech. Let's say October of his senior year. And unfortunately for Johnny, by October of senior year, those coaches and those programs are already pretty much spoken for that senior class. That's not always the case, and please don't hold me to that. But many times, Johnny would be far too late in the process, especially for an elite Division I program like those three that I just named. Okay. So that's my first realization that I want to bring to the table for you guys. Ideally in my business, what we do to counteract that is we reach out to a bigger list of schools and cast a broader net, if you will, as if, a fishing analogy here. We're going to cast a very broad net, probably make a list anywhere between 25 and 40 qualified schools. And again, generalization, ideally we're doing this probably sometime freshman, sophomore, or junior year, depending on your academic and athletic level. The better you are as an athlete, the earlier you need to do this. And academically, it really just depends. If you're looking Ivy League, you're going to be looking probably to enhance your academic experience, take APs, take the SAT, get a really, really high SAT score, and then calculate what they call as an academic index, probably closer to summer in between your junior and senior year. So that's actually quite a shock to most, but those coaches don't start recruiting until even later because it's so selective and such a small pool of applicants and qualified athletes, student athletes for that matter. So to get started here, I would say, casting a broad net, being very, very realistic with your options, and we'll talk about how to do that in just a second, and just being patiently proactive throughout the process. So basically what I mean by that is, if you do send emails, if you do start to make phone calls, and in any particular order there, to coaches, making sure you're staying on top of that over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, 2 to 3 months, whatever that is for you. Do not go 3 or 4 weeks. Do not have any lapses of communication with coaches. But on the flip side, I do want to say this: it's probably not, good practice either to bring them off the hook and call them 3 or 4 times a week. With my guys, if a coach is showing interest, once every week or even once every other week is typically pretty good rule of thumb. Okay. So you guys are probably wondering, the numbers you need to get a college golf scholarship. So I'm going to start with the men's side of things and give you guys some general ballpark numbers as to what you really need to do and what scores you need to be shooting to be looking at a certain level. So I'm a really big believer of not generalizing with my everyday clients, but unfortunately on these webinars, I don't know you guys. I look forward to getting to know you. If you do need help and assistance, I look forward to helping, but we're gonna have to generalize for tonight's session. So Division I, I get this question all the time. A lot of the top D1 schools, and I'm talking probably around the top 50 D1 schools, they're looking for guys that consistently shoot under par. So a scoring average of under 72, let's just say that. And then what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna make this hopefully pretty easy for you guys to understand. At the Division II level, it's a little bit of what I call a trickle down effect. So, if you're looking to play elite D2 golf, probably averaging anywhere from 73 to about 74 is your range. In Division III, anywhere from about 74 to 76 or so, okay, to play at the elite level in each of those divisions, okay? And then if you're thinking about playing at an NAIA school, it's really tough. My answer all the time is it depends. If you're looking at a top 5 program in the NAIA, some of those programs are just as good as some low-level D1s and top-level D2s. And if you're looking at the bottom end as far as the rankings are concerned in the NAIA, most of those programs, are accepting anyone that can break 80 on the men's side of things. Okay, so Junior Golf Scoreboard. Many of you are aware of Junior Golf Scoreboard. If you're not, it's one of the premier ranking systems in which coaches use to recruit players and track progress over time. I think one thing, even if you are knowledgeable about Junior Golf Scoreboard, many people really don't know what goes into that ranking, and that's for another webinar another day, unless you want to ask a quick question about it later. But they also have what they call as a coaches portal, I believe, or a coaches corner, where they actually allow access for coaches, and they can track your progress, not just in the 52-week calendar that Junior Golf Scoreboard shows, but actually over the course of your entire junior golf career, I believe. So over the course of maybe 6 or 7 years, which one can speculate and understand that that's pretty important as far as recruiting and understanding a junior golfer's potential goes. Okay, so pretty quick and easy calculation. I think you guys will like this. I learned this from a fellow colleague of mine and someone that's in my industry. But what we've actually come to believe is that what we can do is we can go in and find not your overall rank, not your rank in your state, but your class rank. So your recruiting class rank of those in your recruiting class. So if you're a 2020, you're gonna go to Junior Golf Scoreboard and you're gonna search for the 2020s, and you're gonna find yourself and find what number you are on that list. Okay. So let's just go ahead and say you're 600 in your graduating class. Okay. This would typically, in my world, that would put you right along the borderline Division I on the men's side of things. So girls, don't get excited. Unfortunately, there's less of you, and it is less competitive, which is nice as far as scholarship goes, but that doesn't mean you're borderline Division I. If you are a girl out there, I apologize. We're going to talk about the men's side of things. I can give you, this ranking does work for women as well, but it's a little bit different, and I can give you that in just a minute. But if you're a guy, go ahead and find your graduation class rank on Junior Golf Scoreboard. Divide that by 3. So if you're 600 in your class, we divide that by 3. We're going to go ahead and use that 200 number for what? You guys are probably wondering. Come on, Mike, give me the details. What are we looking at here? 200 is going to be, if you go and look at the rankings in college golf on golfstat.com, and why don't we I'll go ahead and give you guys a good visuals. Sorry for those of you listening on the phone. I'll try to do my best to articulate what I'm seeing here. We go to golfstat.com and we go to rankings and we pull up the college rankings. I'm that 600th ranked player in, let's say, the class of 2020. It doesn't matter. We could be talking about 2019 if you're a senior. we could be talking about the class of 2024. If you're in, I believe that's 7th grade. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But so what we're going to do, if you are the 600th ranked player, we divide that by 3. We are only going to be looking for schools outside of the top 200 in Division I. Now, just as a general rule, if we're outside the top 200 in Division I, you're going to be looking at schools ranked from 200 to 305, and you can look at any schools in Division II and any schools in Division III. Does that mean everyone's going to be willing to accept you? Does that mean you can go to an Ivy League, like, for example, Brown right here? As we see, they're ranked 242. No, absolutely not. That would depend on your grades, depend on the coach's interest level, and depend on your relationship of the coach and where you're at in the process. Okay, so that's a whole nother can of worms that we can open when you guys, when we open it up for questions here in just a minute. But taking the graduation class, dividing it by 3, and then understanding that you probably shouldn't be looking for any schools ranked higher than that number that we just equated. Okay, so if you find out that you're ranked 1,200 in your class, then you actually don't need to be looking in Division I. You don't need even to be looking at Division II. For those of you that don't know, there's 300 and some change schools in Division I and about the same or a little bit more in Division II. So that would put us right about that 600 number. If you're 1,200 in your class, you're probably looking mid D2, if that makes sense. Okay? And like I said, it does change for the girls' side of things. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to put that in the chat box down below. So as far as what it takes to get a college scholarship, I have some more advice that I'd like to share, kind of transitioning from the facts and the number side of things. I want to talk about how you can prepare your process and yourself to reach out to coaches, okay? So it really does depend, and I know I've said that a few times already, but it really does depend on where you are in the process and what your academics look like, and also what kind of person you are and what your expectations are for college, what your best fit might be. But being realistic, I think, in the beginning with where you're looking and what numbers you're shooting and what schools you're looking at and what they're ranked is really the first part. Now, you have some exceptions like the University of Georgia. They had an awful year. They had a rebuilding year on the men's side of things 2 years ago. They're a perennial top 20 team. They were ranked, I believe, outside the top 100. So that would be an exception, and maybe Coach Hack was a little bit more likely to recruit a player that he wouldn't normally in that year, but that's definitely an exception to the rule. But those exceptions aside, being very realistic with where you're looking, casting a broad net and a very wide net, and making sure that you have at least 25 schools on your list if you're a junior or earlier. If you're a senior and you're a high academic student looking for a high academic experience at an Ivy League or somewhere like that, then sure, maybe it makes sense to be a little bit more selective and maybe narrow your list down to 15 or even fewer than 15. But for most of you out there, for the masses, we're probably looking at a list of schools between 25 and 40. The statistics do say that most players, more than the majority, I believe the numbers are right around 55% of players end up playing in state. So definitely start there. That would be a concern of mine if you were looking, unless you live in Rhode Island or a state in the Northeast and you're looking at, elsewhere. Definitely start within your state and then expand out from there. I think that's great advice for anyone looking to, make that list and be very realistic with their expectations in the process here. Okay. So once you make that list, you're probably wondering, what do I do now? Right. I have contact information. I may even have academic standards. I may even taken a few notes on the school, may even step foot on campus. I find it's kind of funny, but I find many times when a client of mine has an older brother or a sister, they're much more knowledgeable about the process than, let's say, an 8th grader that hasn't had any older brothers or sisters go through the process. And it's funny. I really do believe stepping foot on campus, doing your research on sites like niche.com. Niche has a great app, by the way. you guys want a search tool for high school or colleges. Obviously, in this case, we're talking about colleges. But for the admissions process too, not to go down a bunny trail here, if you're wondering how competitive your high school is and how maybe some high academic admissions officers look at your high school, go to niche.com and check your high school out. It'll give the baseline numbers of what your class or what the past classes at your high school have scored on the SAT, the ACT, and really how tough the course rigor is. But for the college side of things, what really we're concerned about tonight, use niche.com to learn a little bit more about the school. Try to find your best fit. Go and read. This is a bit bizarre, and a lot of people probably are cringing or looking at me funny across the screen here when I say this. Go and read the terrible reviews on niche.com. Don't read the fluff. Don't read the great reviews of someone that just did it because they had to, or did it because they had a great experience. We're not worried about those. Go and read the terrible reviews, and don't take them necessarily to heart. But if you read something that maybe pertains to you, or you could see being a problem or an obstacle for you down the road, then maybe you want to not reconsider, but look more into that before you decide or verbally commit to a program or a school like that. Okay, so do your research, or let's start from the beginning. Understand your expectations. Make a list. Develop a broad reach of schools, 25 to 40, and then go ahead and start to do your research on those schools before you reach out. Okay, and then at this point, we can be, if we truly feel we're ready to reach out, then we want to make sure we have a marketing portfolio, or what I call a marketing plan, in place. And what that includes is a nice resume. You can feel free to ask me questions about the resume if you guys are struggling with that. But a basic resume, one pager, something that you can put in the PDF and send to coaches pretty quickly is always great. An introduction letter, typically something that you would send on an email or as an attachment to an email, is always great. Filling out questionnaires, having a swing video, and then potentially even doing something like a personal interview. And sorry to jump across the swing video. Anything, if you guys have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer how to put together a swing video later tonight as well. But a personal interview. I've had a lot of success doing what I call a personal interview with my guys. And I physically just get on here and I interview them. We record the interview. I pop it into iMovie. We cut and edit it just a bit to get out some of those awkward pauses and to make it, not a 12-minute interview. We try to get it down to anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. But just creating something so coaches can learn more about you and your personality. I really take the other side of the pond approach to this. If coaches put out YouTube videos, and by the way, I eventually put those on YouTube, and that's how we send links to coaches in emails, and we send links to coaches over text, stuff like that. But take the across the pond view, and what that really is if coaches had YouTube links with internal insight and insider information on their program and the players that are there, the tournaments that they're playing, the facilities that they practice on, how they recruit, how the admission, how awesome would that be, right? So unfortunately, that in many cases that doesn't happen. We have to really do our research or really be well connected in order to find these things out. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that we can't give that information to college coaches. So this may not be a video, the personal interview and the swing video. It may not be something that you want to have out there to the public. So what I do on YouTube, and this is a bit of a technical thing, but instead of having it as a public video or a private video, I put it as an unlisted video. So what that means is no one or someone without the link would not be able to view it. So only the coaches with the link, or even other players that maybe you want to get their opinions on that link. Those are the only people that are actually allowed to view or have the capabilities to view that particular video. Okay. So getting back on track here, starting with very realistic expectations, understanding where you fit, creating a broad list of schools, doing your research, and then creating a marketing plan. Okay. Now we're pretty much at that door. And by at that door, I mean we're ready to reach out to coaches, okay? We're ready to go ahead and knock on that door, get our foot in the door and open it up to potential visits, phone calls, maybe even scholarship opportunities down the road. Okay. So that's kind of how things work. Guys, that was my presentation tonight. I like to keep them short and sweet for you guys because I know you guys have busy lives to live and places to be as well. Maybe you guys are interested in Thursday Night Football. I know that's what I'm going to do after we're done here. But I want to go ahead and open it up to you guys for questions.